For a lot of entrepreneurs, the dream isn't just building a successful business, it's building a life they don't have to escape from constantly.
Craig and Kristen Jooste understand that deeply. After years in major franchise leadership roles with brands like 1-800-GOT-JUNK, they walked away from corporate life to build something of their own.
What started with risk, long hours, and writing every check themselves eventually became something much bigger, a business that gave them more control over their future and more time with their son.
Now, as partners behind Genie Senior Services, they're helping franchisees build businesses rooted in both profitability and purpose.
If you've ever wondered whether entrepreneurship could create not just income, but a better life, this conversation is for you. I'm Roxanne Rapsky, and this is my colleague, Sarah Wasco. We created this podcast to bring you education and information about business ownership and all things franchising. Welcome to episode 121 of Unpredicted Entrepreneur. So Craig Jooste, president, and Kristen Jooste, COO and partners of Genie Senior Services are here to join us today to talk about their business and their backgrounds and their journey in franchising. So thanks for joining us today.
Awesome. Thanks for having us.
Lovely to be here.
Yes, thank you both so much for joining us. So, Genie Senior Services joined the FranNet inventory. I don't know. Well, you've been in Canada for a while, but you're expanding into the U.S. And anyway, we just became familiar with you not too long ago. Are very intrigued by the industry and your services. But we always like to start with your background. So, share with us just a little bit about how you started, how you became franchisees, and your journey into your roles in Genie Senior Services.
Kristen?
So I started with a restaurant company about 26 years ago, and they used to franchise. I worked closely with the owner of the business and eventually moved on to 1-800-GOT-JUNK with Craig. We did the whole corporate thing. I eventually had a baby, went on maternity leave, went back to work, and we quickly decided that this hour-and-a-half commute into downtown, the corporate ladder, everything changes when you have kids. I'm sure everyone knows. So then it was sort of like, okay, what's the plan? How do we buy back our time and be able to spend more time as a family together? So the only thing was for us to quit our corporate jobs, which was very, very scary when you have a really good salary and it's consistent. To both want to quit and start up your own business was a huge decision. But as Craig always says, and we joke, you got to make money. So we just hustled and started up our business. And then I ran our first location out here in our suburb, and Craig was pretty impressed. So he thought he could franchise it, and he did all across Canada.
And this was a handyman business, is that correct?
It was.
Okay. So how long ago was that? And then tell us a little bit how you evolved from that business to where you are now.
Really quickly, my background has been in franchising since 2004. Spent time with 1-800-GOT-JUNK, grew their sister brand, Wow One Day Painting. Chris and I took the leap with Handyman. So to answer your question, Sarah, we started Handyman in 2017. Within 3 to 6 months, I looked at Kristen and I was like, wow, you're knocking it out of the park. We are not handy. We don't know what to do, but we know how to sell. We know how to work with people, and we know how to hire the right people. And that quickly led into, me calling the ex-in-house lawyer for 1-800-GOT-JUNK, who was a connection. I said, okay, I need an FDD and an FA and, all the mechanics, the legal accounting side of franchising. We put that together throughout the end of 2017. 2018 started franchising, and then grew it across Canada from Vancouver to Ontario. And in 2023, Chris and I exited. We sold at first 75%, but once it's your baby, the 25% was hard to hang on to. So we did a full exit. Kristen had already partnered with Norm Hayes, who started Genie Senior Services, but it was a single unit. It wasn't a franchise. Loved the idea of franchising, but again, didn't know the mechanics of it. So started talking to us. Kristen was partners with Norm. And then we started looking at franchising and what all we needed to do to put that in place. Got that in place. And it has been an amazing ride. Probably one of the best experiences Chris and I have had on the franchising side with Genie.
That's awesome. I love stories like that. So tell us about Genie. What is Genie Senior Services? What do you guys do?
So Genie Senior Services is a full service white glove senior transition company. So we build relationships with retirement residences. Those retirement residences then rely on us to do a consultation with a senior client who's moving in there. We then do a full downsize, declutter, a pack, a move, an unpack and setup. And that's the differentiator between us and a lot of larger competitors, especially in the US market, is the move doesn't get done in-house. And that's where we really separate ourselves by being able to control quality from the first time that we meet a senior to actually unpacking everything in the retirement residence, getting the hug, getting the thank you. And at the core of the business, it is, heart and business. So we always say it's like fill your emotional cup by helping seniors and seeing that stress go away. When they do we then know we've done our job, because that's that relief that we want to supply them. At the end of the day, it's a very profitable business because, like I said, we manage everything from the initial consult to the move, pack, unpack. And with that, we're bringing in people with really good bedside manner that can move and pack. And the margins just work out in a fantastic way because of how the model's been built.
That's a tough transition. It's not just tough for the senior. I think it's tough for the entire family. So, I love that you've got that all figured out and are providing that white glove service to the families. Are there any lessons learned that you feel from your handyman business that you were able to apply to Genie Senior Services, or lessons learned in general from being on someone's payroll to now writing all the checks? Like, I'm sure you've learned a lot of lessons along the way.
Well, I'll pass the check one over to Kristen because she's known as the money lady. Just to answer some of the lessons she's learned, and I can add a few more.
Okay.
I definitely think we've learned to do a better job of vetting franchisees. Working with you guys, you obviously do an amazing job of vetting them for us. But even once we start meeting with them, we'll have an initial call, then we'll have a leadership team call, then we'll have a follow-up call. But I think ultimately the candidates really appreciate that. And a lot of them have said if they're down to, their top 2 or 3 sort of choices, it comes down to Genie because they really appreciate the amount of time and effort that we put into them in this process. I think Handyman, Craig and I have never taken a paycheck to take a paycheck. We've always been very picky about people and who we want to work with. We joke and say, if we had a barbecue, could we all have a beer together? Or are you going to be the weirdo standing in the corner? Because we don't want that. So we try and avoid the weirdos, but it is a big process, to want to work with these people. It's a lot of their money. You want to make sure it's a good fit both ways. But I think that was definitely one thing that we learned, was just to put extra attention on the vetting process and make sure that it was a right fit for everyone.
Any lessons learned, Craig, that you want to add to that?
Well, it's really interesting in business. So I'm so aligned with Kristen on having the right people and never compromising. And anyone that starts something for the first time, you have to learn that lesson, which we've learned. I also think it's very interesting when you're the one writing the check. So this is business in general, not just franchising. But when you have people on payroll, when you have to take care of a truck payment or an office or lease or whatever it is, it becomes a lot more real versus working in the corporate side where finance takes care of it, or, someone else is writing the check, which I think sometimes is a shock for people. I know for Chris and I, when we started Handyman, I'm sitting at the same stand-up desk that I'm normally at, and Kristen's is next to me, and we sat here and looked at each other, and it's like, okay, we live in a pretty expensive part of the world in Vancouver. We have no income. We have a baby. And it's that whole, like, what do you do when you get the island? It's burn the boats because that way you have no choice but to make it work. And that was a realization. And I think people need grit to get through that of you're the one writing the checks. You're the one that can't compromise, even though you're looking at your bank account. And so it was an interesting thing to go through, but I think we've learned so much from it and grown so much as business people from those learnings.
Yeah, I love hearing the stories of the mistakes people have made and kind of what they've learned and how they've evolved. You've had a lot of success in Canada and are now expanding into the US. So tell us a little bit about that journey as well.
Well, the one thing I can tell you is writing checks, and Kristen writes these, is that going into the States is a very expensive thing to do as a franchisor, because there's a lot of, as you guys know, legal and accounting that goes with it. We're very excited to go into the States. I mean, it's the largest franchise market in the world, 10 times the size of Canada when it comes to population and opportunity. And when we look at what we've done in Canada, that seniors are seniors. They have the same wants, needs, fears in Canada as they do the US. That's what gets us really excited. It was a tough grind. Chris and I went and we had to open up a US bank account to have a stub filing done for the FDD. So this is a little side story. So we get in our car and you bootstrap everything. So we drove across the border close to our place that we have in Washington State, went into the bank. I won't say which bank because it wasn't a great experience. Spent 4 hours there, went out, drew $1,000, put it in the account so that we had this account set up and it got audited by a CPA so that it could go into the franchise disclosure document. Had everything done. And 19 days later, we got an email from the bank saying, we don't like that you're Canadian, basically, and we are going to close your account and send your $1,000 back to you. And we sat there going, we just did all this accounting treatment, the FDD, all this stuff. And those are the things that you just have to have tenacity and grit by saying, okay, well, what do we do? And I jumped on LinkedIn and I said, network, I need help. I know other people have gone through this, and we leaned on that. And Chris and I still joke about that now when we look at financials or whatever. Is like, wow, some of the things that you have to do and hoops you have to jump through that you don't think of. You always think of a franchise as this big business and multi-layers and all that. We have great people and great systems, but you still have to roll up your sleeves and do it, especially when you're launching into a new country. So it's been an experience, but it's been a really good one. And the traction we're now getting with candidates that just get it has been amazing. And like I said, a big chunk of it's through FranNet, which has been amazing to see candidates come forward that just really connect with our mission and vision and what we want to achieve.
That's great news. I'm glad you've had success with FranNet, and we're glad that you are here in the U.S. So tell us what makes an ideal franchisee for Genie Senior Services. Who are you looking for?
So like Kristen said, no weirdos. Just kidding. We have a mix between husband and wife teams and single individuals that come into the business. The most important thing for us is heart and business. You must connect with wanting to serve and wanting to build an admired brand in your community. I think that is really, really important. And so we always say networking and sales is mandatory if you don't have that. It's more community building. Like even Kristen doesn't like sales, but can go in and build network and community with people. And I think that's what we really need is how do we come in? How does a franchise partner connect with building relationships with retirement residences and having empathy for what a senior is going through? And on the same side, when we look at the business, is understanding that this is a business, it's not a charity. Mm-hmm. So the metrics are great, but understanding gross and net, and we obviously walk everyone through what the unit economics are like, but understanding the business, understanding that, I'm going to do an amazing job for you. We are white glove. And at the end of the day, you're going to be so happy you're going to give us a hug and you're going to write us a check. And I think it's finding that balance. The other part that I'll also say is because we are an emerging brand, but we've been in franchising for a quarter century. So we've already built skyscrapers, but people get to come in at the the ground floor right now is the markets we have available are primary markets. We don't have 500 locations in the States. And if someone says, I'm interested in something in Atlanta or something Dallas-Fort Worth area, there is a lot of prime territory available. And so we're not looking for someone necessarily who wants to come in, drive a truck and a trailer and have a job. We want someone that wants to come in, serve their business, grow and scale into multiple territories, multiple trucks and trailers, and then have the business serve them. So we want those scalers, enterprise, people that are going to come in and look at this business and go, I understand if I have a truck and a trailer, it's going to be X amount of transactions at this average job size or average ticket. And then I want to rinse and repeat and add another truck and trailer, another one and another one. And that is ideally what we're looking for when we look for heart in business and someone that really wants to scale.
Yeah, I think franchising is, it's mostly not for people that just want to buy themselves a job. I know there are people that want to do that, but I think a lot of our clients, especially executives coming out of corporate America, are looking for the scenario that you're explaining. They're looking to build an empire, a legacy, and they're just not looking to buy themselves a job. So I like that a lot.
And you want, just sorry to interrupt, but I was also thinking, you want multi-unit franchisees, is that correct? I mean, or that would be your preference? Because I know in Canada, you mentioned you have 15 or so franchisees, but 80 territories. Do I have that number correct?
Yep. Yeah. So, I mean, the last 38 territories, 7 were 4 territory markets. 1 was 2, 1 was 3. So it's interesting what we're finding in the States, because we're new in the States, is we're getting a so we just closed on Omaha in Nebraska. They're coming up, and that was actually through Franet. They're coming up June 1st for training, and they've bought 1 territory, but they have an option on, so they've Omaha West, Omaha East. So I think people are coming in going, yes, I love this. We have another candidate we're working with in Sarasota that's looking at Sarasota and Bradenton. How do I start with one, get another one within the first 12 months? So there is this, we're looking for empire builders. We obviously want people to come in that are multi-territory and lock something up. But we are also finding that we're working with some candidates that want to dip their toe in, and then once they are comfortable, get that next one. Ideally, locking in a territory, just because the mapping is fresh in my head, is if you did a Bradenton, Sarasota, and Venice below it, that would be a 3 territory market. Having that locked up, obviously no one else can buy around you and lock you in. And it gives you the opportunity to then say, okay, we're going to scale this one, have 2 or 3 trucks, scale the next one, same thing. So we are definitely looking for people that are more into multi-territory, but we also understand that as an emerging brand, there's sometimes some apprehension, even though we're a proven model.
Yeah, that makes sense. And, just the way you're describing scaling, I think sometimes people don't necessarily recognize how much easier that is to just have to get another truck versus opening another location, signing another lease, all of those things. It's much less complicated to scale in a business where you're going to someone to provide a service versus them coming to you.
And less expensive, because you're not having to do another build out, take on another lease, pay rent. So, yeah.
And on a long-term strategic level, it also really helps. Like when we look at forecasting and models, we can help people by having, focused area marketing. So how do I focus on location 1, and how do I penetrate that market? And then when's the right time to move in the next one? You're not worried about, oh, is someone else going to buy this, or what do I do? It really helps your 1 year, 3 year, 5 and 10 year forecast and kind of vision to understand how I can grow this thing. And you can be strategic that way. But we also understand where we're at as a brand, and that we'll work through those things happily with franchise partners.
Wonderful. So, Craig, if someone came to you and said, I'm thinking about owning a franchise, I'm not sure how to go about it, what would be some advice or a tip that you might give a prospective franchisee or just business owner in general? And you and or Kristen, I would love to hear both of your tips.
I'll pass it to Kristen first.
Because you talk a lot. Thank you. I would definitely say, are you sure? Is this what you want to do? We still have friends in the corporate world that also own part of a franchise, but they've never fully left the corporate world. They're not willing to take that leap. And so they're kind of unsuccessful in both areas, if that makes sense. So I would first say, are you sure you're ready to leave and go out on your own? Secondly, I would explore your options. Like I said, when we talk to potential franchise partners, that's the one thing I always ask them. Are you looking at other opportunities? And whether it's a bricks and mortar, we've had people looking at pet stores, pet things, look around and make sure that this is something that you want to do. Do you want a rewarding business, or do you want a business that's just there pumping, or what you think is pumping out money? Sometimes we interview people and they're like, how much can I make? And that's really all they're interested in. And I don't think that's going to be a rewarding career, but I would just definitely make sure it's something that you want to do, first of all, and really explore your options and make sure you have that gut feeling and reaction to whichever brand it is that you ultimately want to choose.
Excellent advice.
Excellent. And I'm glad you put in the gut feeling, because I always tell people part of this decision just has to be gut and how
Absolutely.
you feel. Do you
Yeah.
feel confident
Yeah.
in the brand, and do you feel confident in yourself? Because at the end of the day, there's only so much information you can get, and you're never going to feel 100% confident. So that last little
Yeah.
factor, I
Yeah.
think, in there is just the gut. So
Yeah, so interesting you say that, Sarah, because there's one candidate we're working with, and I on the weekend emailed them and they said, yeah, let's talk about this on the next call. And I said, I've given you everything I can give you.
Mhm.
You have all the information. So at some point, Kristen took the words out of my mouth, there's a gut feel and there's a connection with the brand that you either have or you don't have. Every discovery call that I'm on, I will say at the end of the call, I want you to sleep on it. I want you to talk to your partner, your spouse, have a glass of wine, think about it. And if you wake up more excited in the morning, then there's something here. If you wake up and go, yeah, it was nice, it was good, then that's a flag. And you just have to have that connection. And, at the end of the day, yes, there's a franchise agreement, there's discovery, the whole bit, but we're trusting a franchise partner who's launching somewhere that they will follow our values and mission and vision for Genie. And at the same time, they're trusting us that we're going to be there to support them and do the things we say. And it does come down to trust. I've always said, if you have to pull a franchise agreement out to discuss something, you have relationship problems. We, back in the old days, used to file them away into a filing cabinet, and they would collect dust, and we would pull them out upon renewal because we work through it as partners. So yeah, there's a connection and a gut feel that you have to have with the brand, whether it's us or another brand. With that, the right systems and the right attitude, anyone can be successful then.
I think that's all part of being a cultural fit too. Is it the right culture for you where you're going to get that gut feeling? Thank you for sharing that with us. If someone wanted to contact you or get more information about Genie Senior Services, how would they do that?
So one, they can talk to you guys. Two, they can email us, just craig@genieseniorservices.com. And then I highly recommend, go to our website, genieseniorservices.com. And second to that is Genie Senior Services Franchising on YouTube. We have a couple of videos on there where Kristen cries, Norm cries. But it gives you a sense of the brand and the business. And if you want to look at connecting, we also have some video shorts on our packers and movers who are just amazing people. And I think that'll give someone a real good sense of, is this something I want to look at a bit further? But yeah, I would also say you guys have been amazing in bringing people to us and really explaining what Genie's all about. So I would say there's a couple of avenues there.
Very good. Well, thank you again. Thank you both for joining us. I know you are running a business and keep busy lives, so we really appreciate you taking the time out to join us today. Again, I am Sarah Wasco, and this is Roxanne Rapsky. If you would like to learn more about franchising or if you would like to connect with us, please click on the link in the description below. And we hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Bye.